Hello, my name is Crystal Petrie, and welcome to another episode of my podcast, 60 Minutes With. Today, we are learning about content on social media. So many people are on social media for their business, whether that's for profit or nonprofit. Today, we are going to learn all about what content to post, what content not to post. And to educate us all about social media content, we have Willow PAULE. So, welcome to the podcast, Willow.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited about this.
Thank you so much for being here. And to my audience, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, make sure you subscribe to my podcast right now. Now, Willow, tell us, where in the world are you?
So I'm currently based in Southeast Asia. I'm originally from the US, and I used to be quite nomadic, but I've stayed in one place for the last 6 or 7 years. So I'm trying something new.
Ah, excellent. You are my very first international out of the country
Yay.
guest.
Yay.
Yay! Standing O, standing O. So thank you so much for being a history maker on my podcast.
It's my pleasure.
Now, you are going to educate us all about social media content, which is so needed because so many people are on social media. I feel like, and I never use absolutes, so I'm not going to say everyone, but a lot of businesses, for profit, nonprofit, are on social media. So my first question is, can you just tell us what is content?
Okay. So content is anything that you create for marketing purposes. It could be anything from an Instagram post to an email for your email newsletter or your email subscribers. It could be a blog post. It could be so many things. It basically is just anything that you're going to share in the online world that's supposed to get the word out about your business.
Okay. And how does someone create content that's going to resonate or capture people's attention on social media?
That's that's like a really expensive question that everybody wants to know
Yes.
the answer to. And I think it's constantly changing and evolving, and it really is dependent on what you do in your business, how you serve the world, what you offer, and then what people are looking for, and how do you attract the right people to your business that are really going to be the best clients or the best customers for you.
Okay. Now I know that most people, and it was said years ago, but it's still probably relevant today, that a picture is worth 1,000 words. Is that still kind of the case? So whatever you're putting on your social media, attach some kind of picture or a graphic or video to that, would you say?
It depends on the place that you're creating content for. Now, I come from a fine arts background, so I really care about visuals. I love to look at something beautiful, or I really like it when someone can match the perfect visual with words that go with it. But then there's other places where the visual aspect isn't quite as important. Let's say like Substack, maybe it's, or Medium. These are places where you can publish your thoughts in long form. So it's like sort of like an email newsletter, but in a public setting online. And maybe images wouldn't be quite as important there.
Okay. How important is storytelling when it comes to posting on your social media?
Very, very important. Because people are inundated with so much content all the time, it's like flying at you from every direction.
Yes.
We've found that stories really hold people's attention. So if you can hold someone's attention, then that means they'll be more interested in what you're trying to share with the world or what you're trying to sell, however you want to look at it. And if you can tell a good story that weaves together, who you are, how you serve your clients, then that's a real skill that can move your business forward.
So my next question is actually two questions. First question, what is user-generated content? And my second follow-up question to that is, how can someone incorporate user-generated content into their social media strategy?
Okay, I like this question. So originally, user-generated content was maybe you have a business and you create some type of product, and people are so excited about your product that they just organically start documenting, like, oh, I love this oven mitt. It's the best oven mitt I've ever found, and look at this pie that I baked, and I didn't even burn my hand when I got it out of the oven. And they're like, taking pictures and sending it to the company, and then or tagging the company on Instagram, let's say. And then the company can use that content from the person to share in their stories, to write an article, whatever they want to do with it. And it's this very organic way of marketing that the company itself doesn't really have to put a lot of thought and effort into it, but it gets the word out to all these new people that they didn't have access to before. Now, things are changing with that type of content. Now there's a lot of influencers and people online who are creating that content for pay. So people actually, it's essentially a commercial. So these companies are paying like an influencer or somebody in the online world to show how they use a product. So let's say it's a cat collar and they send it to me and I put it on my cats, and then I take pictures of how it works and what my cats do with the collar. Do they like it or not? And so it has this organic feel to it, but it's not true organic marketing because they're getting paid for the content, the people that create it. So, but there's something about it that people really like because it doesn't feel like an ad. It feels more organic, and that's what people are responding to. So I know that a lot of people that I work with, like in my industry, they are the creators of that type of content. Um, so I don't know, like depending on what your business is, you could either get into creating that content for companies, or if you want to elicit that kind of content, I think one way to get it from people is to share it on your social media. And I'm thinking of this local cafe that I go to a lot. They have very limited Instagram presence. Like they don't have a lot of posts, but they're really beautiful posts. But then what they mostly share is user generated content from the people that come to the cafe, take these amazing photos of their coffee and like pastries and stuff, and post it and tag them, and then they just share it on their stories like all day. And it's also beautiful. It's like people have spent a lot of time and effort creating these almost like visual diaries of their experience at the cafe, because it's kind of in a beautiful setting too. So it doesn't really take a lot of effort for them to create more of that, because it seems like people are just sending it to them every day because I don't know, there's something fun about creating it too, I guess.
And it really, especially for that cafe, the work is being done by other people. So
I know.
the hard work is being done by someone else. And like you said, all they have to do is just share it to their IG and to their stories, and voila.
Yeah. And it's so good that I watch it like almost every day. I'm not like a real, stay on social media kind of person, actually,
Mhm.
even though I work in social media. But I find myself like looking at their story every day because the content is so beautiful.
Now, Willow, let's just talk about you for a couple minutes. How did you get into social media content, and how long have you been doing this?
So I had a photography business before. I worked in the real world, not online. And I moved overseas and I needed to find online work. And so I was looking at ways that I could use the skills that I had learned through owning my own business in an online setting. And so I stumbled upon virtual assistants, and that's kind of like it's a big umbrella term for a lot of things, but basically you're assisting business owners and people online with all these different tasks. So I started as a virtual assistant in 2018, And then I found that I was best at helping people with their content creation and content marketing. Um, Probably because I have a fine arts background and I also had owned my own business, I was able to take those pieces and kind of put them together to support other business owners and coaches and consultants in creating content that really attracted their soulmate clients. I like to call them their soulmate clients, the people that you really want to work with for a long time, the people that, it's not a drag to bring in, and because if you own your own business, you want to have good relationships with people. Like,
I
why wouldn't
love
you?
that term,
You know,
soulmate clients. Yes.
yeah.
And so how long have you been doing this?
So I started as a virtual assistant in 2018, and then I kind of niched down to content in, I think it was around 2020,
Okay.
um, right around the time of the pandemic. It was a little earlier maybe, but I've been doing that stuff with my clients. It's just I didn't really say that I was a content specialist or a content creator. I just was mostly focusing on those things behind the scenes with my clients.
I am going to start using that term. Can I have that? Can I use that term,
Take it.
Willow?
I think
Soulmate
I got it
client?
was from someone else.
Oh
I
my
like it.
goodness. I love it. So, Willow, are you currently looking for, in your own words, soulmate clients? And how can those clients get in touch with you?
Yes, I am. I work with people in a variety of ways. I work with them like on short-term projects and also longer-term projects where I do done-for-you content with them. And they can get in touch with me on my website. It's willowpaul.com. I'm also on LinkedIn and Instagram, and those are my main places that you'll find me creating content for my business.
Excellent. And just so my audience will know, there's an E at the end of her Paul. So it's PAULE, willowpaul.com. Excellent, excellent. So let's get back to some more learning. How can people create shareable content?
So, in order for something to make people want to share it, it has to be something relatable, like something that people can relate to. Also, I found that shareable content, a lot of times it incorporates humor because we all sort of enjoy sending funny things to our friends. So, if we are sharing something, it's funny or it's relatable. I think those are the two main things to keep in mind when you try to create something that you hope that people would share.
And what about hashtags? They've kind of become all the rage since Twitter. I want to say Twitter kind of, I don't know if Twitter invented them, but Twitter definitely increased the use of hashtags. Now they're just everywhere. So, how do we use hashtags? What are they for?
So it depends on how old your audience is. But when I used to go to the library, I would use the Dewey decimal system to
Mhm.
go find the book that I was looking for. So, excuse me. um, so hashtags are essentially the same thing. It's a method to find some type of post that you're looking for. And it's also a method for the person creating content to hopefully match their content with people that would be interested in it. So it's just a system to match people with particular types of content. And on Instagram, it's kind of ever changing how we use hashtags, but and like how important they are, I guess. And LinkedIn too. Like I used to be able to use hashtags to find content that I found, like the specific content I was looking for on LinkedIn. I used to have some success with using hashtags to do that. Now I would say it's not working very well for me, and it's usually like outdated content. If I do find an active hashtag, it'll be like a post from a year ago,
Oh,
which is not
wow.
very useful.
Yes.
And then on Instagram, they sort of, for a while, they said, oh, hashtags are not going to be important anymore. And then they kind of backtracked on that. So it kind of is up in the air how important hashtags really are. But I don't really see the downside of using them, especially on Instagram, because it doesn't impact it in a negative way. It can only impact your, well, it doesn't impact your post in a negative way if you know how to use them. So I'll just tell a little bit about that too. Like, um, every hashtag has like a certain number of content associated with it, whether people have used it a lot or have used it a little. And depending on how big your account is, you want to choose hashtags that are not too big and not too small. It's kind of like Goldilocks. Like, you find the bed that's just right. Like, you find the hashtags that are just the right size for your account size. Because let's say that you have like 1,000 followers, and then you use some hashtags that have like 5 million uses. You're probably not going to be at the top of that. It's like
I see
Google,
what
you know,
you're saying.
where you see the first page. It's kind of like you're not going to be on the first page of Instagram. You're not going to be on the second. You're going to be way down on the bottom because your account isn't as big as that. So you want to find some small, medium, and large hashtags related to the size of your account. And that takes some research, but you can create a screen. You can create a spreadsheet with like, okay, I want to use 10,000, 10K through 25K. That's my small side of hashtags. That means like these hashtags have been used 10,000 times through 25,000 times. That's pretty small. And I'm going to write down all the hashtags that I find. And then they also have to be hashtags that are related to your content, right? You can't just use the same hashtags over and over again unless all your content is exactly the same. So it is a little bit complicated. So then maybe you'll have your small hashtags, you'll have your medium and your large. And then what you want to do is mix a little of each into one post, but also keeping in mind what the content of your post is about.
Mhm.
If you're, let's say you have a salon, and then you're using like hashtags about art exhibits or something, it wouldn't make sense, and Instagram doesn't like that, so it has to be
Right.
related. Yeah.
Right. Would a Google search help to find like your small, medium, large hashtags? Is that something you could Google and find?
I've never tried that. I mean, what I find the most useful is doing it on Instagram. So you can start typing things into the search bar, and different, let's say that you type in art heals, let's say, and then you'll start to see suggested hashtags underneath of that if it's something that's been used. Maybe they have art heals Sunday, art heals everyone, and then you can see how many times those have been used in the search. So you can start to see like what, and then once you see a hashtag that you might want to use, you should always click on it and see what the content looks like. Look at least the top 9 and see if it's something that looks similar to your content, or it looks kind of trashy and like something you don't want to be
Mhm.
associated with, and you don't use that. So it does take some time and effort to be mindful about that.
Okay. What are some tools that you know of or maybe you use that helps with creating professional, eye-grabbing videos and pictures for your social media?
Well, I love Canva. It's free, although I use the paid version because you get a lot more use of like different elements that you don't get for free, but it's pretty cheap, the paid version. But what I like about Canva is it's very user friendly. It's something that you use online, so you don't have to like store a lot of files on your computer. Everything is stored there. You can keep your brand details. Like, I see that you have that dark orange in your brand.
Mhm.
You could keep that exact shade in Canva, and then you could keep your logo and whatever other assets you have for your brand right in Canva, and then you can just quickly like click on it and use it in whatever design that you're creating. Um, I really like that about Canva. And for video, depends on what kind of video content you're creating. If you have a podcast like you, um,
Yay!
I've used a few different pieces of software that I think can be really useful for editing. One is Descript. It can be very useful for editing your podcast content and also for creating audiograms or clips that you want to use to market your podcast or share it in different ways. Riverside is another one that is pretty user friendly. You can use it to edit, but you can also use it to create transcripts. And you can also use it to record a podcast. Those are the main things that I use for um, tools. Aside from Photoshop is really useful, but it is a deep program and you have to learn how to use it. Canva, I would say, it has a easier learning curve.
Okay. And I have used Canva and it is very user friendly. And the posts always turn out so beautiful. They really, I
Yeah.
mean, you you look like a professional, like working within
Yeah.
Canva. It comes out looking like it was professionally done and it's very easy to use. So yeah, I second that motion for using Canva. Um, what are some strategies, and this is probably $1 million question as well. What are some strategies to help people increase engagement with their social media post?
Okay. I have some ideas. I think when we think about engagement, we think about numbers and, I
Yeah.
want to get my numbers up. And um, let's shift it a little bit and think about how we want to have connections with human beings, like the people behind these accounts. For most of us, I mean, we own small businesses, or even as a nonprofit, you still need to get to know the people behind the account, right? You don't just want engagement for engagement's sake. Like, okay, maybe you get 1 million likes on your post. What does that give you in the real world? I mean, you might feel good about it because
Yeah.
it's exciting. But after that, what do you get out of it?
Mhm.
And aside from, like, every business needs to make money, but we also want to have, first, we want to have connections with interesting people. And just, if you own your own business, why not have as many connections with interesting people as possible? Like, why does it have to be a drag? Like, we've maybe lived in, like, worked in an office before in a corporate environment where we didn't really have, not every corporate environment is awful, but there's some things that we don't enjoy about it. And maybe a lot of us have, started our own businesses to sort of have a different experience. And I think when we think about engagement, if you can sort of think about the person behind the account, that helps a lot. And to me, the best way to create engagement is to interact with the people that are behind the account. And so that's showing an interest in them, looking at their content, commenting, responding to their comments on your post. That's like, that has to happen.
Mhm.
Um, and responding if they message you, or messaging them and asking them questions about things that they share. I think these are all sort of human reactions that we do in the real world that we should also bring into social media.
Okay, okay. What kind of content, and I think maybe we went over this a little bit, but can you give us some examples of like specific content that's going to stand out? And I know earlier you were talking about, we just have so many messages and stuff always coming at us from every platform and everywhere, it seems like. But what is some stuff that we can post that will make our content stand out in a sea of content?
I think honest content stands out when you tell a story about yourself, like why you started your business, or
Okay.
um, something that inspired you to create the podcast, or um, you know what trajectory did you have before you started this project? Like, what led you to this point in your life? Those kind of stories are very, very engaging to people, and they want to hear them in multiple ways. So it's not like you just tell it one time and then you're done. You can tell your story in many different ways, and that really draws your audience in the people that are the right people to connect with you. At least, like, you don't have to draw everybody in. You just have to draw the people in that are the soulmate audience, or the people that are going to connect with your story.
How important is consistency, posting consistently, and what does that do for your social media engagement?
So I think it's important, but I think that consistency and frequency are sometimes confused. Like, some people think that in order to be consistent, you have to post 5 times a week, let's say. And my theory is it's not so much about the frequency, it's more about being consistent in who you are online, and then that being the same as who they would get if they decided to work with you. So what they see online is maybe, a good, like, when they see you online and they hear your stories and then they meet you in real life, they say, "Oh, wow, it's the exact same person that I
Mhm.
that I got to know online." And I don't really think it's as important to focus on the frequency, because I think it depends. So if you're marketing a specific thing, like, you might need to go harder and post more frequently. If you're trying to fill a program, or if you're trying to like, you're doing an event and you want to have a certain number of people come to the event, maybe you might need to do more frequent posting at that point. But I think to say that, like, everybody has to post on a consistent schedule and it should be this many times, I think that that doesn't really make sense for every business, and it's very dependent on, like, who you are and what else you're doing to market your business. Because hopefully with social media, that's just like one piece of your marketing. It's not the only thing that you do to market your business.
Okay. How can, like, for example, if I wanted to, how can I collaborate with other people to help expand my reach? What is that? What does that look like? What does that feel like?
I like that question because I'm a big fan of collaborating with people online.
Hmm.
Only because, I don't want to spend money on marketing. I want to spend my time and energy with people that I connect with, which is an important part of collaborating, because you want to make sure that you're working with people that have something to offer to your audience, that you enjoy spending time with because you're going to be interacting with them in some way, and that they they I can't remember what I was going to say. Yeah, but so when you're collaborating, you want to make sure that it's something that you're really, you are making sure that you're collaborating with people that are going to move your business forward, but also that you're getting something out of it personally.
Right.
um, because it can be really fulfilling to have this kind of partnership with someone, and it can be a small thing, like it could be writing an email for someone else's email list. Maybe you offer like a complimentary service to someone, and you reach out to them and say, "Hey, would you mind if I write an email for your email list about this service that I offer?" And it could be not even like directly talking about how they offer the service, but how this type of service could help somebody in a certain position. But you would write that for somebody else's list, and then maybe that person would write something for your list or not. It could be as small as that, and you can get new email subscribers that way. You can invite them to sign up for your email list. So you're kind of widening your circle. Um, it could be something like writing a blog post and interviewing people in your industry that you think have interesting perspectives. I'm working on one of those right now about people that are conscious business owners. Like, they care about the environment, they care about the people and their relationships with the world and the people who live there. And so I interviewed a lot of people, and they told me their thoughts about what it means to be a conscious business owner. And I'm going to create like a roundup style blog of all their thoughts, and then I'm going to link back to their website. So it's good for for Google, Google to find their sites, and it's good. It's good for their footprint online so that they can be seen by more people.
Oh, so do you think that blogs are still relevant?
I think so, yeah. There are still those weird people out there like me who really like reading long form content. And I think it's even because of all this short form content, it's like there's certain people out there who are like, I don't want to see all this short form video. I'm hankering for something written, and like you can really sink your teeth into it. So yeah, and it can be a really good way to bring new traffic to your website. So I think it's relevant. They're still relevant.
What is the difference between organic content and paid content?
Organic is something that you don't pay for. So it's any social media that you're just putting out there for free. You don't have to pay some service to put it out there. It could be like Instagram or Facebook posts. Let's see. I feel like I'm missing some. What else? LinkedIn. There's lots of ways to do that. The downside is that, maybe you lose your account one day and suddenly you don't have access to that platform. Like I just lost access to my Instagram account yesterday, but it was only for
Wow.
like 2 hours and then it
Mhm.
came back. So then you're like, oh no, all that work I did. But so anyway, I think I'm getting off track. Organic is something that you don't pay for, and then paid content is something that you pay to get out to more people, supposedly, if you know how to do it. So you can pay for ads on Meta, which is Facebook, or on Google. Some people pay for Google ads. Um, let's see, and then I guess like the user generated content where they pay the creators to make it. I guess I would call that paid content too,
Okay.
as well as like influencer marketing. If you have a product and you pay a person that's called an influencer to influence people to buy your product, then that would also be paid content. So it depends on, you know, some people use a combination of both. Some people only use organic marketing. Maybe you have a specific event or a specific thing that you're launching and you want to pay, do some paid advertising at that point because it's a really important thing to fill.
Mhm.
There's different ways to approach both of those types of marketing.
All of my content that I do is organic, and I've never done the paid content, Willow, but I have heard horror stories about people who have done paid, and just like you said, Willow, just like you said, you do it correctly, however you want to do it, but just make sure you're doing it correctly because some of the horror stories have been like people have paid for it and then they just get like thousands and thousands of just random people like on their
Yeah,
site that have no idea, what they are advertising or selling or promoting, don't care, what they're advertising or selling or promoting. And it just ends up being just a mess for the person that's like creating the content and putting the content out there. So I will
yeah,
definitely say if you are going to do paid content, um, you know, be as specific as you can about exactly what audience and the people that you're looking for because I have heard horror stories about that. And a lot of people, they just have to end up like just deleting. Like you've paid the money for, the content and getting eyes on it. And they just end up having to delete all of those people off of their sites.
yeah. What a drag. Like, yeah, I agree with you. It can be complicated and put some time and research into it before you just go into it all willy nilly.
Yes, absolutely. How can people ensure that their content is inclusive for everyone, including people with disabilities?
That's a good question. There's a lot of people that use screen readers, so being aware of like how emojis are read by these screen readers, that's one way to be aware. I think I saw a post one time where somebody had used all these different emojis, maybe like 100 emojis in one part of a post, and someone showed how their screen reader reads that, and it's just like them repeating this thing over and over. I mean, it must just drive
Yeah.
you crazy. So don't do that. Um, so if you want to use emojis, maybe just use a few and think about how someone would read that on a screen reader. Like, is it going to make sense? Um, some other ways to be inclusive would be to make sure that you use headings correctly. So the way that Google is set up, like let's say on your website, you have like heading one, heading two. Heading one is the biggest text. Heading two is smaller. Heading three is smaller, and then you have paragraph, which is just sort of the normal text that we use when we're writing, not a headline. And sometimes, like I've made this mistake before. I wanted to make big text, so I just put a heading instead. But that is confusing if you are like if you can't see, if you're impaired, if your sight is impaired. It's going to be confusing to see something as a heading that's not really a heading because it's telling you that it's important, but it's like a whole paragraph of heading. It doesn't make sense. So Google really likes it if you are clear and if you use like heading one, that should only be your title on the page. If you use heading two, that's like for like different sections, where you're starting a new section of a blog. Let's say you have a title there, that should be heading two. So things like that can really make it easier for people with disabilities to understand what's going on that page. Um, there's some other things like making sure that the colors that you choose are legible. In other words, like putting maybe a certain color with another certain color, it makes it really hard to read, like maybe
Mhm.
for anyone, but especially for people with some kind of disability. So you have to be aware of like what colors make it really hard to understand what the text says. And a lot of web building programs will actually tell you now, like, oh, these colors are not suitable together. So then you just have to change what you've done there so that it's easier for people to absorb the content. Those are just a few ideas.
When I was getting ready for this podcast and I was thinking about that, for me personally, when I make posts, that's not at the forefront of what I'm thinking, like making my post inclusive for everyone to be able to read or see, or if you have a screen reader. But that is definitely something that I know I'm going to start being mindful of whenever I'm posting, making sure it's inclusive for everyone to see it, to read it, however they recover that information.
It's always a process. Like it's not like we can know everything about the world. It's
Right.
a process of like education for me too. So you have to just sort of implement as much as you can at a time, and then things change, and then you have to, you have to like change everything to keep up with the times. But yeah, it's good to just be aware and just try to grow in that way as as you learn new things about what's the most helpful for everybody to be able to consume your content.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of change, like when social media, everything is always changing every single day, especially trends. There's always a new trend every day, sometimes more than like every day, all day. The trends are changing. How can people stay up on the trends without losing their unique voice and without losing who they are?
Mm, I like this question. Okay, so I think it's really fun to do something related to a trend because there's this energy about it. It's
Mhm.
it's like new and everybody's doing it, and it's just kind of fun to do your to envision it your own way and like create your own version. But what I like to do before I post something on my business social media is think, is this in line with all my messaging for my brand and my business? Like,
Mhm.
does this help my audience in some way? Does this have any relation to what I talk about every other day? If the answer is no, and I've just created this trend video, um, then I'll post it on my private Instagram page. There you go.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted to just do something creative and fun, and and just play around. That happened to me once where I was going to post it on my a trending sound, trending audio. I created something for that, and I thought, this still has nothing to do with my business page. Like, I'm going to post this on my personal page, and it was perfect for there. It just wasn't the right thing for my business.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So you can still be a part of the trends, but just understand which page you should post it on. So your personal or your business page.
And there are some trends that will be perfect maybe for your business. There could be something that's really perfect for your business. And then that's really exciting because you can be part of the trend and you can share it on your business page. But you have to be really careful to um, ask yourself, is this related to all the other content that I create and my message that I want to get out? Or is this just something that was fun for me to create?
Right. And really look at your intention
Yeah.
on being a part of those trends and what you want to do with those trends. Talk to us about content calendars. What are content calendars, and are they useful or they're not useful?
So I think they can be really useful. A content calendar is a plan for your content. So, like, related to, a certain month or week, depending on how, granular you want to get. For me, I like to keep things a bit loose, but I do, let's say that I know that I'm going to be selling a certain program. Well, I know that I need to start selling it like 2 weeks before, let's say, and I need to create content um, about that launch, and I want to see if I have like past content that speaks to it that I can reuse and repurpose. And so I'll make notes on the calendar, like maybe I want to do 2 to 3 posts this week about maybe the emotion of the launch. Like, why would somebody emotionally be interested in this product? And then maybe another week I would focus on, maybe the first week I would focus on like, what are the details of the program? The second week I might focus on like the emotion, like how would you feel if you do this? And, you know, um, yeah. And then I might have another week where I focus on the transformation, like what do they get out of this program? What are they going to feel like after they finish the program? What's it going to give them? So I have this like sort of plan of the type of content that I'm going to create.
Mhm.
Now, some people are very, very detailed and they know exactly what piece of content is going to go out on what day, and they write it on their calendar. So that's another way to do a content calendar. Um, you know exactly what piece of content will go out on exactly what day. And I think it really just depends on how your brain works and like what helps you meet your targets. Like, if I know that I want to sell this program, I'm probably going to create enough content every week to do it. But some other people really like to have specific things on specific days, like very organized. So it just depends on what works for you.
Okay. And are there any tools out there, any content calendar tools that you can think of, that if people want to start utilizing a content calendar, they can hop on?
Yeah, later is one. I think it's LAT. Oh, I think it's spelled the regular way. Okay, LATER later. I believe you can use that for Instagram and maybe some other social media platforms. There's Planoli. I like that one as well. It's for Instagram. Um, there is, what is it called? Tailwind. Tailwind you can use to plan out your content for Pinterest or for Instagram. But actually, you can use Meta and Instagram to plan your content as well. You can't you can't really see it in a grid so much. You can only see that you've scheduled the content. So depending on like if you want to actually see what it looks like on the grid, then you should use these other programs like the ones I mentioned. But if you just want to schedule your content and make sure that it's going to post when it's supposed to, you can actually schedule it in Instagram or a Meta Business Suite.
Okay. How do you handle negative comments? I know earlier in the podcast, Willow, you were saying that, to engage your audience, respond to comments are a huge thing. What about negative comments? How do you handle those?
It depends on what it says, I think. My mom has a clothing business, for instance, and for some reason, a lot of women like to make really negative comments about like either their own body or like they talk about how ugly the model is, like really strange
Wow,
stuff like that. Like oh, she looks so dumpy, or you know.
that's
So
horrible.
yeah, so if it's something like that, my mom just hides the comment on Facebook because it's not really constructive in any way. Like she could respond and say, no, she's not, she's beautiful, but there's no real constructive conversation to have there. However, um, there's other situations where there's something constructive that can come out of it. I'm thinking of like reviews where people say, I like this product or I like this food, but they forgot my so and so. Or I always get this salad and it was different this time. It was greasier, and you can then respond to that comment. Thank you so much for all the times you've ordered the salad from us. We're so grateful for your service. We're sorry to hear that you had a bad experience this time, and we'd love to send you another salad for free, or
Mhm.
like there's an opportunity to show that you really care about people's feedback and that you care about them coming back to you.
Okay. How does someone know which social media platforms to get on? It's so many of them out there. I mean, of course, we have our main Twitter, which is now known as X. You have your Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, but it's so many social media platforms. How do you know which one to get on and to use?
Um, First, I think you should think about what your natural proclivities are. Like, what do you enjoy? If you hate short form video, well, maybe you shouldn't get on some platform where that's like the main way of communicating. Um, if you love long form content, well, maybe you shouldn't like make yourself create short form reels, let's say. But so the first thing is to just think about what you like and how you like to express yourself. The second thing is to think about what does your audience need and where are they? Because a lot of times, depending on what your business is and who your audience is, there might be like more of them on one type of social media versus another. Let's say Facebook versus Instagram. I would say there's like a generational difference now between
Right.
Facebook and Instagram. There are a lot of older people on Instagram too, but Facebook, I would say, is mostly older people, not so much younger people anymore. So if your audience is like 60 plus, maybe Facebook is a really good place to be. Um, if you know, I used to think that LinkedIn was only for corporate businesses, people in suits, but it's really not that anymore. It's very, very. There's so many like woo businesses on there doing like tarot readings and yoga, and you can really create a community of whatever type of people you want to be interacting with on LinkedIn. So I think the first thing is to think about how you like to communicate yourself. And then second thing is where's your audience or where do you think they would be? If you don't know where they are, you can look at some competitors, like you can look at businesses that are similar to yours and see where they're active. Because probably your audience is in the same places since you're doing something similar to them. So that's one way to decide.
Okay. And how do you prioritize your time with social media? Because I know you can get on social media and go down a rabbit hole and you look up, it's been 4 or 5 hours. So, how do you prioritize your time, making sure that you're engaging? It's so much like social media is like a full time job, but making sure you're engaging, making sure you're responding to comments, making sure you're putting like your storytelling and beautiful pictures and videos and different things like that, which can take up an entire day. So, how do you prioritize that?
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think having boundaries about when you use your phone, that can be helpful. Like I've started just not looking at my phone at night before I'm going to bed. I
Hmm.
know that's such a simple thing, but it really affects your brain. And if you can kind of take a break at certain times and just not look at your phone and not look at social media, it's pretty good for better for your mental health and also just for your body because our bodies need to have a relationship with the sun. And when we're looking at these electronics that have a lot of like blue light all the time, it really wrecks the way that our brain works and our circadian rhythms and everything. So putting your phone down at certain times is the best thing to do. I think giving yourself a specific amount of time and like focusing on the most important things first, not just idly scrolling because that can make you sort of go down a rabbit hole and be like, oh, it's been an hour.
Yes.
Like instead, um, focusing on responding to people's comments, looking at people's stories and commenting. If you're a stories kind of person, there are people that like to look at stories. There are people that don't, but I like it because I can have conversations with people. Going to people's posts and commenting. More active time than passive time, I guess. Like not just scrolling through reels and looking at people's content that you don't know. More like trying to spend time with the people that you're trying to cultivate relationships with.
Hmm. What what is this is a couple questions in one. What is social media burnout? Is that a real thing? And what do you do about it?
I think it is a real thing. I think burnout in general is a real thing. Social media has this effect on our brain, I think, where we just see all this positive content from people all the time and it makes us feel like we're not succeeding in life because everybody's doing better than us and
Mhm.
or not responding to our messages, like my friend didn't respond to my text yet, but here he is, posting on Instagram. Like there's this sort of immediacy that we expect because of social media, and it does a lot of weird things to our brain. So I think you can get really burned out from that. And it can be very fake too. It's like this place where you have to kind of signal that you are successful. And if you're buying into all that messaging, it can be it can wreck your idea of yourself because you're like, well, I'm not an 8-figure coach,
Right.
um, why are all these other people succeeding and I'm not? And there's just something about social media that does that to our brains. And I think it is really healthy to take a break, especially when you're feeling that way. And think about ways that you can connect with people in your life, whether I mean, it could be people online, but it might not be on social media. Maybe it's like having a call with somebody that you're friends with online, or maybe it's like taking a walk and getting away from your computer or your phone, like spending time in nature, seeing animals. These are things that I like to do when I'm feeling like really sort of burned out from social media
Yes.
because yeah, it can be a drag. And I also like to not spend a lot of time on social media on the weekends because it's a bit dead there, at least for my business. And I'm like, why am I gonna spend all my time on social media anyway? There's nothing happening and I need to like spend time in the real world.
Right. And people forget about the real world. You were talking about looking at the animals and being like within nature. People forget all about that stuff because they get so consumed with social media and what's going on their cell phones.
Yeah. And there's a lot of cool stuff about like all these, technologies that we use. Like when I go on my phone, when I go on my walks, sometimes I'm like making voice notes for my friends that live in different time zones. And there'll be like the sound of sheep buying in the background because I go through this like walk on a farm, and there's like all these animal sounds. And I don't know, it's kind of fun to just talk to my friends and like use that technology, but also get away from that feeling of being left out online or like not being good enough. It's nice to just regroup.
Right, right. Okay, Willow, I have two more questions for you. Then we will say our goodbyes. You stated earlier in the podcast that you've been doing content creation a little bit over 4 years now. What is your personal intention in this space? What is your goal?
So I it's funny because I had my photo business before, and I found that I really liked taking documentary photos of people because I'm an introvert, so I'm shy, and it takes me a while to get to know people. But what I loved about documentary photography was that I could like keep revisiting the same people over and over and getting deeper into their lives and finding out more about them. It was my excuse to like get close to these interesting people. And it was all about connection for me. And that's kind of what I've discovered this business is about too. It's about connecting with my clients and like doing really good work for them because all my clients have amazing businesses that I can, like, their missions are so amazing. And I can really get behind the work that they do. So, like, when they're successful, I feel successful by extension. And the other thing is like helping them connect with the people that need what they do, because that's really meaningful for them, but it's also meaningful for me. And so it's this like string that's been through a lot of the jobs that I've had in the past. And this job is that it's all kind of about connecting with other people.
My final question for you, Willow, who do you think would make a great guest on the podcast, but you have to help me get them on?
Okay, I can do this. My friend Harris Martin, we met in Korea. We were teaching English there together, and he's kind of like a Renaissance man. He does all these different things. He's a fitness trainer, so he's like really nice body, and he's a singer. He's like so many things. I I can't name them all, but he's very creative
Yes.
and just a fun, kind of sweet person. And we've been friends for a really long time. And I just like to see like the success that he's had in his life because of his energy that he puts out into the world. And he told me a long time ago that he became a fitness instructor because he really liked eating junk food and he needed to be able to do that. I just
Yeah.
really liked him after that. So you need to talk to him.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Willow, for being on the podcast and giving us so much really good information and content, because this podcast will be considered a long form content.
There you go. You
Yes,
got it.
yes. Thank you so much. I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Crystal. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And to my audience and to my listeners, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. You can get Willow's podcast and all of my other podcasts on YouTube Podcasts and Apple Podcasts. And remember, you always have time to listen and learn on the go.